is this the perfect high grade for the perfect strike freedom? And well, judging by the box with its awesome cover art, this might just be. And if you want to find out for yourself, you can get one at Hobbylink Japan through the link down below. Or, you can continue watching this video. On the side of the box, we're getting an overview of the accessories we're getting, including some of the gimmicks like the Super Agni and the Super Schwertgewehr, and we're also getting a quick overview of the setting of the Gundam Perfect Strike Freedom. An extremely powerful Gunpla with the Strike Freedom as a base, the mobility of the L Striker, the firepower of the Launcher Striker, the close combatness of the Sword Striker, and a few new weapons thrown in there for good measure. On the other side then, we are invited to combine Gunpla to form our own custom machine, which is of course one of the big draws of Build Fighters, and we also get an introduction to the anime itself, which we can watch through the QR code on the front. A pretty cool touch. And of course, because I'm a Dutch native speaker, it obviously redirects me to the French Gundam.info, which is in English. I relate to this on a Belgian level. But anyways, let's have a look at what we're getting on the inside. And since this is a remold of the regular Strike Freedom, it shouldn't surprise you that you'll recognize quite a few runners. There's the white A1 and A2 runners, the multicolor C runner, the red D1 and D2 runners, and the gray E1 and E2 runners. And what might surprise you is that even the effect runner is a remold, but this time from the Infinite Justice. Also on screen then are the wire for the grappling hook and a generic set of polycaps. And then finally, the new parts for this kit consist of the black B1 and B2 runners and the multicolored F runner. And all together they form this hedgehog of a mobile suit. There's things sticking out all over the place, and if busy designs aren't your thing, I think you're gonna want to stay far away from this machine. The one thing that really struck me though is just how massive that backpack is. It definitely makes the Perfect Strike Freedom feel much more imposing, especially once you combine it with an action base. As for the color accuracy then, with the use of a positively tiny sticker sheet, it is almost entirely on point. We just get the usual stickers for the eyes, the main camera, the sub camera, the back camera, and the sensor of the gun. And in case you'd want to paint the eyes, we also get a silver metallic sticker that you put behind them to kinda give them a shinier look. There's only one problem with this approach. The eyes are supposed to be yellow, but because they're on the same runner part as the blue beam shield, they're in that same blue color. But still, all of this means that with the stickers, all the painting you have to do is some black for the insides of the guns and the vents, and gray for the bottom of the feet. Personally, I would also recommend painting the handle of this very blue sword, but this is actually how it's supposed to be. And for the 00 fans, you might want to paint those fins on the chest yellow. So finally, we have the seam lines, which are mostly well hidden, with the one standout seam line being the one on each shoulder. So if you want a truly perfect Strike Freedom, you'll have to put in that little bit extra effort. But that's not to say that straight out of the box, you aren't getting a very good looking Perfect Strike Freedom. And believe me, with the amount of accessories that this thing comes with, it's a lot of fun too. So let's have a closer look at those. Starting off with the weapons hardwired to the thing, we get two head-mounted Vulcan guns that can very easily be painted if you'd want to, because the barrels poking out are actually a separate part. Then on the right shoulder we get the combo weapons pod, which combines a Gatling gun that unfortunately does not rotate with a 6-tube micro missile launcher. And even though it might look like some of those flaps could move, they can't. On the other side then, there is the Rocket Anchor Panzer Eisen, which is essentially the Sword Strike's grappling shield, but now it's superglued to the left shoulder. The claw can move, and thanks to its lightweight, it actually stays up quite well with the included wire. And if you don't like the shoulder attachments, you can technically still replace them with the original Strike Freedom's verniers, but the problem is that they're now used as the main thrusters on the backpack. Next up then, the forearm equipment. Just like the original Strike Freedom, they've both got a shield generator, but unfortunately they only have a single shield effect part. That also has some really ugly safety blobs on the corners. I'm not impressed. So it's a good thing that they're now also weaponized. By flipping them over, the perfect Strike Freedom gains access to the stun unit Indra and the beam blade Lichtfang. The former is a stun gun that can give enemies negative status effects. Unfortunately, it doesn't come with the wires that shoot out, and the latter is very simply a beam blade. And then finally, we have the Super Multiple Assault Striker, an oversized version of the L-Striker pack that comes with significantly more weapons. On the top, we've got the Xiphios 3 rail cannons that, according to the description, are a stronger and smaller version of the originals. This then means that somewhere, something went horribly wrong, because you don't make something smaller by taking the exact same thing and then adding something to it. But regardless, they're on 2 ball joints and they've also got 2 hinges to allow you to easily deploy them. And here's a quick customization tip. If you don't like these rail cannons but you do like the wings, by simply cutting off this little peg, the wings will actually fit quite nicely into the holes of the rail cannons. So if you buy 2 Perfect Strike Freedoms, you can make an X-Wing version with 4 extra Super Dragoons. And talking about the Super Dragoons, with 1 Perfect Strike Freedom, we get 8 of these bad boys. They might not have a peg to conventionally connect them to an action base, but thanks to their hollow design, it is not difficult to brute force it. Where there's a will, there's a way. The backpack does look quite naked without them though. And also stored on the backpack, we have an upgraded version of the anti-ship blade Schwertgewehr and the Hyper Impulse Gun Agni. Both were designed as 2-handed weapons on the original, but thanks to the perfection of the Perfect Strike Freedom, this machine can now wield each perfectly with just 1. And in the case of the new Agni, even though it has been downsized, it is still as deadly as the original. Also, since the pegs of both weapons are the same, you can switch them around if you want to, or if you buy 2 Perfect Strike Freedoms, you can store 2 of the same on this machine. To use them then, you simply attach one of the 2 included beam effect parts to the sword, and then hook up both weapons to the standard holding hands. They fit perfectly. But that's not all. You can also combine them to form either the Super Agni or the Super Schwertgewehr. Essentially, supercharged versions of their regular forms, with the Super Schwertgewehr now having beam effect parts on both sides. And if you think that both forms look very similar, then yes, the only difference between the Super Agni and the Super Schwertgewehr is how the Perfect Strike Freedom holds them and whether or not you put the effect parts on there. And all of these weapons then allow you to pull off the perfect full burst, a devastating finishing move that can be used on a single opponent or an entire army thanks to the multi-lock-on system. And then it runs out of juice. But that is still not everything that this thing comes with. To attach it to an action base, you can either use the traditional hole in the bottom, or use this included connector that is designed for an action base number 5, but I can confirm that it also works with a number 1. And the final real accessory then are 2 open hands for some more dynamic posing. And the actual final parts are some leftovers from the Strike Freedom and effect parts from the Infinite Justice. The only usable things in this pile are the V-fin, the red piece that goes on top of the crotch, and the 2 beam sabers. But keep in mind that the beam saber blade effect parts are for the Infinite Justice, meaning that they won't fit on these beam sabers. And then before we move on to the articulation, there is one more thing to tackle. The Super Multiple Assault Striker is a striker pack, right? So that means that it must be compatible with other striker pack compatible mobile suits, right? No. It instead uses the standard Build Fighter's twin peg connector for compatibility with other Build Fighter machines. So, unless you're going to modify it, or superglue it, you will not be able to use this thing with your Gundam. So, on to the articulation now. The head's on a hinge and ball joint combo, the shoulders are also on a hinge and ball joint combo, the arms rotate around, bent at the elbow on 2 joints, and the hands are, again, on ball joints. They'll wiggle around, turn around, and do everything a ball joint does. The waist then is on a double ball joint, allowing for some really good forwards and backwards movement, sideways movement, and it'll rotate around on a peg. The front skirts then are molded together but can be separated and move very nicely forward to allow the legs some really good forwards movement. And even the back skirts move all the way back for extremely good backwards movement as well. Sideways movement then is a bit more limited due to the side skirts, and I hate how they went with rectangular pegs here instead of round pegs. Had they been round, you could have simply rotated them around for even more articulation. But anyways, we've also got this extra hip joint and the legs will rotate around. We've got a double knee bend, this panel opens up, and the feet are on a hinge and ball joint combo for nice forwards and backwards, side to side and rotation, complete with ankle armor that goes up and down and a toe joint. And then lastly, the backpack. The wings flap up and down and rotate around, and the booster pods are on ball joints. So overall, our perfect Strike Freedom Gundam does have some really impressive articulation to go along with that already impressive arsenal. So as always, the inevitable question is, do you want to buy this? 2,300 yen might be on the higher end for a high grade, but you do get a lot of stuff for that price. The Strike Freedom is an amazing base, and the new Perfect Strike Freedom parts work very well with it. As a fan of both the Gundam Breaker Badlock series and its pilot, I'm very happy with this thing. It's got superb articulation, a plethora of weapons, and a traditional Gundam color scheme that works really well. So then, for some size comparisons, here it is next to the high-grade Cosmic Era Ailstrike Gundam that this thing was inspired by, and the Infinite Justice that it borrowed some parts from. I would also compare it to the regular Strike Freedom, but I don't have that thing yet, so here it is next to the regular Freedom and the Destiny. And then finally, here it is next to the standard size Gym Custom and the always bulky Zaku 3. It might not be as chunky as the Zaku 3, but that backpack definitely makes it demand quite some shelf presence. And that has been all for this review of this almost perfect Strike Freedom Gundam, provided to me by Hobbling Japan. Again, if you want your own, links down below. As always, a big thank you to the Patreon supporters. I hope everyone watching has a great day, and I'll see you all next time.